We are activating your unique self-discovery one show at a time. The Orchard of Wisdom Self-Discovery podcast are at your fingertips, just waiting to inspire and invite you in discovering just how awesome you really are and how to navigate through life in joy, enrichment, personal abundance, in mind, body, spirit, heart, and soul. All the people we bring you are here to serve you on your journey of life. Do enjoy our next show. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Choose Positive Living right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest today, who is still on fire, is Renee Linnell. We're going to be talking about her book, Still on Fire, a memoir. Having just written my own memoir, I'm dying to know how she did with hers. And as she said, this is her second book. She's got hooked. We're going to be finding out about her loss, but she lost her father on Thanksgiving when she was 13, or is that 15?
15,
15.
yes.
And after more than a dozen years of conflict and estrangement, she lost her mother, who went missing and turned up drowned in a hotel bathtub. I'm so sorry to hear that. Renee knows devastation. When she was 33, she joined a Buddhist cult, got brainwashed, burned almost everything she owned, and nearly lost her sanity and her life. Renee suffered from plenty of shame, but eventually she shook it off, made peace with her flaws and failures, and got busy to live her life to the fullest. Magic, miracles, travel, and romance. This is where Renee leads us in her long awaited sequel to The Burn Zone, from love affairs with men half rage to being rescued by angels to getting stranded at 22,000 feet in the Himalayas and being electrocuted in Maldives. Renee takes you on a wild, page turning adventure, sharing you with soul soothing wisdom that she gained along the way. My goodness, girl, you've been through it.
I have. I
Welcome, and
know.
makes my memoir look very boring.
Oh, I doubt it.
Wow, you really have been a lot. And, I lost a parent at 11, and I didn't have a strange thing with my mother. It was a funny relationship, but, it's losing a parent is kind of losing a part of you, isn't it? It's like a missing link. So having that so young, um, really kind of, I think, sometimes is that arrow you needed that was going to direct you somewhere seems to suddenly gone missing.
And I do think that deep inside, we understand that it's not the usual unfolding of events, right?
Yeah.
It's usually the parents are supposed to go first.
Hmm.
But I also think it makes us so much stronger because I think as children, it's our biggest fear is to lose a parent. And when that happens and we survive anyway, we're not as afraid of the world, I think. I noticed for myself. I don't know if you noticed that.
I'm a very spiritual being, always have been. So for me, it was a loss of him as a human being, but not as a spiritual being.
How
So
wonderful.
for me, it was always he went home. Um,
Oh,
and I think that's always been the way I've looked at death. But it's more the living death that we have in life that scares
right.
me rather than the passing over, which by the
Oh,
sounds of things, you faced it quite a bit.
and I can tell already we're going to have a wonderful conversation because it's so nice to talk to people who see the world this way.
I mean, I know for me that because my mother then went into her own exploratory, we packed up from England, where I was a very shy, reserved, sickly child, moved to South Africa, where my mother suddenly developed wings and kind of became a totally different person, which was wonderful for her. But in a little ways, I got left behind, kind of flapping in the wind in a brand new country. Um, and it can kind of make you make wrong decisions or be seeking out people in the wrong places.
Yes, and isn't it so interesting? Something not the same, but when I lost my father, I lost my whole way of life that I knew
Mm,
also, as you did. And I was also a sickly, introverted child,
mm,
very sensitive, very spiritual.
yes.
And it's interesting, isn't it, that we both had that similar journey to go through.
And that sensitivity makes us seek out the spirit in people because we see it. We see the
Right.
possibilities, we see the spirit, we see the heart. But to get to that heart, you have to go through the other crap, quite honestly. And that is what ends up shattering us because not everybody wants their heart revealed.
Right. And then for beings like you or me, we can't imagine living through life without our heart completely leading the way. Otherwise,
Mm.
why be here? Right.
Yes, yes.
But we are intense and we scare people sometimes when we want to just get right. I'll be at a bar and I'll say to someone I first meet, what do you love? And they're so used, a man's so used to being asked what he does for work or what
Yeah.
kind of car he drives.
Yes.
That when I say your work doesn't define you, I want to know what you love. It's always a little awkward, I've noticed. But then they light up because they get to talk about their true self.
Right. If they feel confident enough. I think you've just read my memoir. And it's, I've always kind of been the freak, the oddball, and
Me too.
people drawn to you because
Right.
they want that wisdom. And I'm sure it is the same with you, is this I just channeled knowingness. And I would come out with a statement or something they needed to know. And they go, how do you know that? And I don't know. You just needed to know. So I knew that I was a channeler. But then people will be drawn to you for that information and then push you aside because you are that oddball and they don't want to be seen with you.
And I think they can tell that we see all of them, and that's
Yes.
sometimes scary. So the
Yes.
ways they try to hide from the world, we see right through it, and we love them anyway.
Yes.
We love all of it, and we would rather interact with all of it, but it's scary and they don't want to be seen. So yes, I was always the weirdo.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm glad to be a weirdo now, but
Me
when you're
too.
growing up, all you want to do is fit in.
Right.
So is this how the cult came about?
I think it definitely is because I feel like I had so much soul sickness, even though I had this beautiful life. I was traveling the
Mm,
world as a surf model and an Argentine tango dancer. I'd been really well educated. I graduated magna cum laude with a double degree. I had the dream life,
mhm.
and yet I always had this deep sadness inside, and I thought I
Yes.
was the only one.
No.
And yeah, no one was talking about it. And so I was searching and seeking, and I walked into a meditation seminar, and that's the opening of my first memoir, The Burn Zone, when I sat in front of my teacher for the first time and meditated, and the whole room turned white, and I found this incredible peace. And I realized this is what I was searching for. And not only was that what I was searching for, but it seemed like I found a whole tribe who was also searching for
But what went wrong?
it. So much. I I definitely erroneously attributed the peace I felt from meditating to the teacher. And then
Mm,
I'm an extreme person. So if I do something, I do it 100%. And I became the number one student. And I did everything she said. I figured if I was going to hire a coach to train me in the Olympics, I would do everything the coach said.
mhm.
And she led me on a path of total destruction. But
Ah!
I do have to say that once I rebuilt the pieces from the rubble and rebuilt only the authentic pieces, I love my life on the other side of total and complete devastation.
Don't you feel that sometimes those people, I mean, I love the Celtic runes, and there's one called Haglas, which is disruption, and that some people do come into your life to totally disrupt it, to break it down, so that you do rebuild the pieces that you want and let go of that does not serve you.
I do think that. And I do think anytime life comes along with a sledgehammer, whether
Mm,
it's losing a career or going through divorce or losing a loved one or an intense illness, anytime life drops us to our knees like that, it is such a powerful opportunity to completely stop the
mhm.
nonsense and start rebuilding what's real.
And that doesn't mean you're going to build it perfectly. It just
Right.
you're going to build it in the knowingness of the time, because I do feel that people like us that are here for a job, we're here to ignite the heart and souls of others.
Right.
And, quite honestly, this should have been under Ignite Your Heart and Soul genre. That is what we're here to do, is enlighten people, switch them on so that they step into their heart and their soul's wisdom. But it's it's almost like we're swimming against the tide to do it. And I don't quite know why, but I also do think humanity wasn't ready.
I agree with you. And I think the swimming against the tide thing has depressed me sometimes because I
Mm-hmm.
think I'm out here saying, life is magic and it's miracles and our thoughts create our reality and we can be or do or have anything we want. And people argue so strongly for their limitations and don't want to hear it. But what I realized is there are so many people who do.
Yes.
And so these are the people who, as we're swimming upstream, just suddenly turn and swim with us. They don't want to be carried. They
Right.
don't need to be put on our backs. They just suddenly see, you're going upstream, I'm going with you. And it seems like you know a little bit more than I do, so I'm going to follow.
Right.
And that gives me goosebumps.
And that's why you've written your books, and that's why I'm interviewing you, because this is what this platform is all about. It's for people who want to dip into the water and, follow us upstream, but they can get out of the water at any time.
Right,
And that's the beauty of it, is that some people may only dip a toe in. Some
right.
people may immerse in and carry, swim with you. And some people, I'm swimming with you for a while, but I need to take a step back. Because do you find that a lot of people have been, well, scared? Yes. But our passion is too much. Like the energy that comes from our core, when we get into flow, it can be overbearing for some people.
Yes, I do. And I know for me, just because so much of my family died when I was young, I always
Mm,
thought, I never know which moment is my last. I don't know
yes.
how long I'm here. And so I tend to be very extreme and very intense because it's like, oh my gosh, I have one more day to be on this earth. I'm going to pack as much. My friends say, Renee, do you realize you do in a day what most people take 2 weeks or a month to do?
Slow down, grasshopper. Be
Yes,
in the now.
yes,
Well,
yes.
that's where the cosmic 2x4 comes along. It goes whackaroo. You're going too
Right.
fast. You're not paying attention to the wonderful gifts of life itself, and especially a spiritual life, and just slow down and absorb. Have you had that 2x4?
Well, and that was the whole cult and the
Mm,
shattering, and pretty much my whole first memoir. And I needed it.
mm.
I really needed it, and I'm grateful for it now.
Um, you talked about, being a sickly child or a sickly person. What was the sickness that you had or
Well, I
have?
was born 3 months early, and I was 3 pounds. I was a twin. And then my mother was very, very fear-based. So anytime I got sick at all, she had me
Mm,
filled with antibiotics and pharmaceuticals. And I don't think that she fed me well. Um, and so I just was in this whole cycle of sickness and then pharmaceuticals and more sickness and bad
mhm,
nutrition. So mono every year and hepatitis and chronic fatigue syndrome and every cold and flu and tonsillitis. And it wasn't until I was in college and had to take a class called Nutrition for Dancers that I started to understand the role nutrition played in my health. And then I read Louise Hay's Heal Your Body
yes.
and The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman, and Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Miss. And I started to realize that I had to get off the pharmaceuticals and change my whole paradigm on health and wellness. And I have been so healthy
Yeah.
ever since.
Yeah. I was an asthmatic from the age of 2. I got the Asian flu. And
Oh,
so, because there wasn't things like asthma pumps or anything like that at that time, every time I had a sneeze or a cough, to bed, and I could be in bed for weeks. And that time there wasn't phones or radios or TV or tablets or anything else. You're in a room on your own, and I think that's where I started traveling. I would go into other dimension, other realms, because being in the realm I was in was too lonely. My mom would give me breakfast, lunch, and dinner and check on me, but otherwise I was on my own. And so I had to, and that's when I started playing with dead people, because I opened that door and the spirits came through. And but I kind of realized quite early that don't talk about that.
oh yeah, we can't talk about any of that,
No.
right? As little kids, because it scares the adults and then
Hmm.
we're bad.
Yes. I mean, my mum was very fey and comes from a family of that. So,
Oh,
but
great.
that was a bit too extreme, right?
Okay.
And of course, I opened a few doors I shouldn't have opened, and body snatched and a few things like that. So, one learns where to push, where the boundaries are, and sometimes you learn the hard way. But the I'm sure for you, as you've mentioned, the loneliness, because you want to share this, or you want to be able to discuss it with someone that can understand what's happening to you, because you don't relate to the humanity around you.
Right. And I also think I remember being on the playground as a little kid and just seeing all the angels and all the non-physical beings and again magic miracles and rainbows and then I wanted to share that. My heart was exploding with love and joy. And not only did the other kids not want to hear it, but it made them afraid.
Yeah.
And so it's so sad that I shut down that part
Hmm.
of me almost completely, I think, until I walked into that meditation seminar and it all exploded open again.
Yeah. And of course, when it explodes open, if there is no control, no volume control, it's just,
Right,
because you feel that you've found your tribe
right,
and you're safe there. And
right.
then, but then I think what happens is that we try to take the broken human with us instead of just allowing the spirit to nourish, the spirit to learn, the spirit to gather itself in its wisdom and be strong. We try and take the broken spirit with us, the broken human, and that in a lot of ways interrupts or even contaminates that growth, that spiritual growth. I mean, we need to do it the other way around. The spirit needs to heal the human, not the human side, trying to dominate the spirit.
Well, and it's so interesting because I remember being pure light. I remember where we came from. I remember where we go
Hmm.
back from, back
Hmm.
to. And I realized it took so long for me to realize that I had this internal struggle, and it was being human and being flawed,
Yes.
and how different it was in a human body with the flaws that are built into being a human, I think on purpose, so that we need each other, so that we all
Yeah.
fit together in this divine tapestry. If we were all perfectly capable of everything on our own, we would never need each other. But I really did struggle with the human part of me
Hmm.
when I remember being pure light. But I do like to think that I finally
Yeah.
integrated it more or less.
Yes. I was always kind of resentful of the human experience because I felt so alone and isolated. And I
Right.
tried to be this dutiful human that other people wanted from me, but it was such a conflict with my very beingness. And it's only when I stepped into my beingness completely that I could partner with my human in peace.
Well, and it's interesting. I felt the same way that you're describing, and I'm sure so many people that
Mhm.
are listening to you feel the same way. And I do write about it in both of my books, which is we were taught to hide the spiritual part of us in order to fit in with the other humans, and we
Mm.
learned to do it. We learned to blend, but we never really fit. And then we felt so alone because we weren't honoring who we truly were.
Yeah.
And then it really is the journey to, once we are authentic and are not afraid to speak our truth the way you and I are right now, all the other beings like us that can find us, but they're
Yes.
all hiding too. So it's
Yes.
kind of like we all have disguises on and we can't see each other. And then we take the disguises off and we go, oh my gosh, I'm not here all alone. There's so
Mm.
many of us.
Like a little spiritual Morse code has gone out. Beep, 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 beep. And
Yes,
everybody's
yes.
hearing each other. And most certainly in the 10 years I've been doing this, I've met some beautiful souls that have had the same struggles. And, here we have this permission just to be ourselves and without apology, right? Which is, I think, one of the big things we used to apologize, without apology and with true acceptance of who we are. And I think that is something that will benefit other people that are maybe awakening to this, that are having feelings that they don't quite understand, and that it's, we've struggled for you. We're opening that door for you. You don't have to be alone anymore.
Right. And not only are we opening the door, but we're shining the flashlight. Like
Mm,
there's so many of us, and there are more and more that are willing to rise and kind of, I always felt like a caged dragon. And then
yeah.
I finally started to expand my wings and roar, which made me melt everything that kept me small. And I
It's
thought,
on
but you
fire.
know, yes, but only when I rise to, as a dragon, can the other dragons find me. If I'm just sitting there with my wings folded in and not breathing fire because my wings and my fire scare people,
Yeah,
the other dragons can't find me.
right. Yeah,
And
exactly. When I was asked once what animal I am, and before I could even think, which I find is the best knowledge, is when you don't think it, you feel it. I just said I'm an eagle phoenix,
oh
and
wow.
the eagle that is always watching. and
Yes.
swoops down when need to, and then back in the safety of the sky. But the phoenix, where I realized um, I burn bright and I burn out, and then just
Right.
to be reborn again. And I realized when I looked at the pattern of my life, that is what I was doing, just kind of bursting into flames and from the ashes rising up again.
Oh, I have such a beautiful quote from Viktor Frankl in the beginning of the Burn Zone, and it says, "What is to give light must endure burning."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it's don't be afraid to have your deaths.
Right,
We're going to have many deaths, not just of other people. I'm talking about our deaths.
right,
We're going to have many deaths along the way, end of chapters,
right,
places that are absolutely gone that we will never go back to. But the beauty of it is that means there's a new birth. And that is so
right.
exciting.
It's so exciting, and it's the only way to embrace the traumas. And they're
Yeah.
not traumas, right? They're awakenings, but
Yes.
the traumas of life. And I realized I was struggling so much to heal because I thought I was supposed to be the person I was before all the trauma. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was trying to be her, and I couldn't be. I was much more sensitive. I was much wiser. I was much kinder, more compassionate, but not able to just go into a bar and be the life of the party. I needed to stay home and eat nourishing foods. And I was going through this whole mourning for who I used to be. And then one day it dawned on me, I'm not supposed to be that version. She was
Yes.
lovely and she was amazing, but I'm this new, wiser, fuller warrior version of me.
Mm. Um, because I was so introverted, I became an extroverted personality so that I could connect with people. But it was a version of myself. And but then I would and still do. I can be very extroverted in everything that I do, but I have to go back into myself, into my cosmic world to recharge. And I'm sure you found this, the loneliness of our lives, because nobody really saw you for who you were. Nobody, they would talk at you, but not with you.
Right.
That disconnect. Can you not see me? Can you not see me? And feeling that they only saw what they wanted from you, but not you. But then when you step into your own light where you can be alone with self without feeling lonely, is a beautiful space to be.
Yes, I feel like I'm talking to myself because I'm the same. If you met me out and about, you would think I'm the most extroverted
Mhm.
person out there because I learned to be extroverted, to fit in,
Yes,
to not
yes,
make people uncomfortable.
right.
And also, I love people, but I need 90% of my time I need alone and quiet. And
Yes,
sometimes just the sound of an air conditioner can be too much.
yes. I will
So,
do a show and then I'm doing the editing afterwards, and I forget the headphones are still on. Because I don't know about you, you're never in silence.
right.
Never in silence. And silence can be the silencing of the human mind can be the best thing you can do, because that's when the soul and the heart wisdom it can come through. But if the mind is constantly in chatter, it's static that conflicts that wisdom that comes through. So for me, it's always feel the wisdom and I call it the knowingness. So it comes through the soul wisdom, the channeling. It resonates with the heart in truth. It lifts the spirit into action, and the mind will know what it needs to know when it needs to know it.
Yes, definitely. And I actually realized I wanted to go back a little to what you said about that feeling of loneliness,
Mm.
because we can't be the only two that feel that.
Oh God, no.
And it's such a strange contradiction in a way, or conundrum, where it's like we have all that, we know we have spirit with us, we know we're never alone, we know we're completely guided, connected to source. And then I know for me, when I go out in the world, I often feel more lonely. And I feel like, as you said, nobody sees me, nobody gets me, nobody understands me. The small talk really drains me. Talking about current events makes my heart hurt. And so then I can't wait to just be home
Yeah.
alone. And I go, oh my gosh, I can breathe again. But then I go, I feel lonely. So then I
Yeah.
go out in the world and I'll be at dinner with people and be like, I just want to be home alone.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because if you're not with I've got very, very few good friends. I have many colleagues and people that I will call friends that I've interviewed through the years, or, we've become friends. But friends around me, I can count three. There were four with my beautiful little 89-year-old landlady that I live with, who is such a
Oh,
wonderful spirit in herself. Um, but that's it. And I've tried to make friends with other people, but it always ends up being, what do you think of this? What should I do here? Da 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 da. And it's
right.
like, well, can we put that all aside and just be friends? And I don't know about you, but I find most of the time they can't. It's they see something that you've got that they need, and that's what it's all about.
Unfortunately, yes. I do think, and I do talk about this in Still on Fire, how so much of the world looks outside of themselves to be
Yeah.
filled. And then those of us that are really spiritual beings and introverts, of course, we fill up before we go out into the
Yeah.
world. So we go out full and then we're pouring into our cup is full. We're pouring into everyone else, which we love to do, which we were
Mm-hmm.
born to do. But then we get completely drained.
Yes.
And then our sweet friends go, well, why are you always going home? And you're no fun. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, it's kind of like we're shopping together and spending all of my money. And then you wonder why I don't want to keep shopping. But of course, I don't want to say that. It's all of my energy pouring, so I just say, oh, I'm just tired.
Mhm. Your kind of illness maybe came earlier. I was given fibromyalgia, partly because of a very traumatizing marriage that sucked the life out of me. And I kind of disappeared from my life for about 8 years, and it took 8 years to come back. Like on the surface, I functioned and everybody thought I was fine. But my soul and heart had been so injured that I went so deeply in that it took 8 years to come back out again. And I developed fibromyalgia, and it was like, okay, all right, I have this, and I've done the work now because that was 21 years ago that I left him. Um, why do I still have it? And then I realized why is still my essence of my energy when I'm in that light is still too much for people. So it has to be short bursts of it, and where my battery drains out, and then I have to go back and recharge. But if I was well and my heart and my battery was at full volume, I would probably burn other people out. I may turn into the dragon, be spitting fire. So, do you find that there's certain obstacles that have been put in your way that, in hindsight, are there to slow you down?
Well, I do. And I wonder, and I'll just say this to see if it resonates, but I almost wonder if some of the fibromyalgia is feeling the pain of mass consciousness and humanity. Because
Boy, yes, yes.
sometimes I think that we're like white cotton balls that go out into the world fluffy white, and we just pick up all of the
Mm,
psychic pain. And unfortunately, there's so much because most people aren't living their true soul's calling. So there's so much soul pain. And so I sometimes, I don't know if it would be diagnosed as fibromyalgia, but I'll say I feel like I'm plugged into a pain, like
yes,
a light socket filled with pain. And I realize I'm just picking up on the psychic pain of mass consciousness. And I do need to go retreat
yes.
for days sometimes with
Mhm.
just not interacting with the outside world, cooking, meditating, doing yoga, being in nature.
Yeah, and being in nature is absolutely wonderful. And I have a 17-month-old grandson, which fills my heart and diverts my attention when I see him. So we have to find something where we can let our heart be full. And of course, nature is beautiful. Watching a puppy dog chasing a stick or a ball, a kid discovering a puddle, even the beautiful whispers of the leaves on the trees and the lap of the ocean against the shores. All of this is so utterly rejuvenating. And the wind blowing away all that worries you and just clearing you out. Nature is just divine. It really is.
It is. And the vibration is so pure and so
Yes.
high and just reminds us when I get into a negative state of mind, let's just say, it's funny because I'll be in a negative state of mind and then I don't watch the news, but then suddenly I'll decide I want to look online at the news. It's almost like because I want to make myself feel worse. And then I get go down this rabbit hole of I don't want to be here and what are humans
Yeah.
doing? And this
Yeah.
world is filled with so much pain and no one's ever going to wake up. And then I just go outside and suddenly I'm like, this planet is magnificent and there's so much
Hmm.
abundance and there's everything we need and there's so much love and there's so much kindness and it's so much beauty and I don't want to leave, I want to stay.
If the media looked at the percentage of kindness and love out there, compare it with the amount of hate and discord and disconnect, the discord and the disconnect would not be as much as we think it is.
Right.
There are more people that are living in love, kindness, and caringness, but the media doesn't cover that. And if we, for a week, did not promote anything that could bring you down, war, hate, any of these people that get off really on all the negative, no negatives for a week, and all you did was inject all the good things that people are doing for each other, I think we would shift the psyche. Absolutely.
Oh, completely. And you think about the fear-based, lack-based consciousness. Every time I open a lemon, I am shocked at how many seeds are in there.
Yeah.
And then you think each seed grows a whole new tree that
Right.
has how many lemons?
Yes.
You know, there's so much abundance, and yet the world, the media is not projecting that. Imagine if they said that every day.
Yeah. But you know what happens? Fear sells. Why does fear
Right.
sell? Because it's a form of control. If you
Right.
keep people in fear, they lead to hysteria. If you really ask them what they're angry about, everything, and it's because they've been fed, things, whether it's even anything to do with them or not. They're just
Right.
constantly fed it and they don't know what to do with it. They step into the anger. What happens with that anger? They don't know how to spend it. They don't know how to delete it. So they step into violence. And it's then, let's hurt someone else to relieve me. And when they hurt someone else, either guilt or shame steps in, or they enjoy it and they continue it. And it's a rabbit hole that's very hard to come back from. But if they could just learn it right from the beginning, do an act of kindness for someone, see that appreciation, that gratitude, soak in that gratitude because it feels so good, is going to make you want to do another act of kindness.
It's so true. I believe that we're pure love and that we love to love and that we were born to love. And that's actually why we're here.
Yes.
And I think of myself when I'm in a bad mood or sad or angry or down or whatever, and I have to go to the post office and I think, oh my gosh, I don't want to go out in the world. I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to leave my house, but I have to go. And then I go and I interact with the person behind the desk, and it's such a love-based interaction. Just, I don't know, it just shifts my whole mood. This other person, and he's helping me and he's mailing my stuff and he's making sure it's going to get there. And then I go back to my car and I'm so happy just because I interacted with someone. And I do think, the fear coming through the media says, well, you can't interact with anybody and you can't do anything and you can't travel.
Trust anyone.
Right.
Yeah,
so basically stay home and let us just brainwash you with fear. And then you go out in the world and in the universe, I love to call them divine appointments, put you in an elevator with somebody or put you at the bus stop with somebody or sitting next to somebody on a plane, and you fall in love with an angel who just is in human form.
And, it's just the feeding of each other at that time.
Right.
And I've heard many a story of somebody being at a cashier and somebody turning around and, just saying something, can I help you with your bags? How are you doing? It just starting a conversation and engaging with that person. And that person, after saying, I really was questioning why I'm here, whether I should still live or not. And that one person made me feel seen. And so therefore I'm going to give it another chance. And really, that's what we really want, is that we want to be able to see each other, not from the exterior or from the societal's expectation of us, but from our very heart and soul and the character of our beingness, because that's where the beauty lies.
It's so true. And the way we can start that whole cycle is by taking the time to see others. And as you were saying, when I said, oh, I do so much in 2 weeks, and then you said, well, has the 2x4 come to slow you down? And that was one of the biggest gifts of the 2x4 slowing me down, which is now I do have time to really see people and really listen to them. And when I was doing my first book tour for the Burn Zone, I was this new author. I was so worried about selling books and saying the right things and looking good on camera and all of that. And as I was traveling around the country doing the book tour, I kept hearing this voice in my head that said, don't miss this moment with this person. And whether it was the taxi driver or the cashier or the person, the flight attendant on the plane, it was a mantra. Don't miss this moment with this person. And I had the richest experience just from all the different smiley, happy faces I met as I traveled around. And suddenly it wasn't about my story or my trauma or being brainwashed or my book or sales. It was about, the turquoise earrings that matched the turquoise eyeshadow and the person selling me a bottle of water.
Well, in the writing of my book, I have said I'm not writing this for an audience. I am just having an observation of my own life, which I will share with others, and what they do with it is what they do with it. It's taken me years to kind of, okay, all right, I'll write it, because people keep asking me, what my story. But when you've heard so many stories of what people have been through, their bodies being smashed to such a point that they're half metal, people being raped and abused by their own family, their own fathers, and just some of the things that the people have gone through, but who they are today and what they stand for today and who they're illuminating today is really, what I celebrate and what I cherish. And I look at my own story and it's like, does anybody really want to hear that? But really what we have to do is not compare stories and just put out our journey, because it will resonate with someone that is on a comparison journey, somebody who can relate to it, because all they want to know really, how did we get through it? How did we become who we are today?
And I do think it's so healing to share our stories.
Yeah.
I do think it's what bonds us. I do think it is what helps other people keep going when they think I'll never survive this, and then they happen across a book. And books enter our lives always at the just right time, or we open to the just right page. And I also think most of us resist being told what to do. But if you just write your story and say, this is what I did, this is what worked for me, this is how I found my way, then people are given the freedom to say, oh, this does parallel my own life. But I think it's so healing to share our stories with each other. I think it's really important.
And there is not one size fits all.
Right.
My brother is a professional author. And, I thought he's going to be, oh, you've got to do this and you've got to do that. And instead, no, when you're ready, that's fine. Do it article form, which is the way I've written it. You can lay it out like this and lay it out like that. And, and my sister says, am I going to read it? And I said, only when it comes out. I'm going to have different people read it that really are more my tribe people, because they will get it, and I know that certain other people won't. So why, they're not the audience, so to speak. So, why write it for that? And I think that's also something. Don't try and write a book that is going to fit everybody in some way. Write honestly, whether it's fiction or whether it's faction, or your memoir. Write it from a place where it's your truth, because that truth will resonate with someone else.
Well, and I went through that process with my first book, trying to, in the beginning, who would read it. And then with my first publisher, they wanted me to sanitize the story and change my writing to appeal to a larger target market. And I had this moment where I thought, singer-songwriters whose songs we love, they're not worried about the target audience. They're singing from their heart. It's a divine gift, and it's being offered to the world with the vibration of a divine gift from my heart. And when we write that way and we tell our stories that way, or we offer whatever our divine gifts are, the same way a tree would offer her fruit, she wouldn't be worried if people are making pies or if people are saying her fruit's better than everyone else.
Right, exactly.
She offers her fruit because she'll die if she doesn't.
Exactly. And it's in the offering.
Right.
That is the pleasure, right? Again, it's like with these shows. I know that even the vibration that we're in right now is resonating out there with someone, right? Before even the show goes out. But once the show goes out, I share it on lots of platforms, but once it goes out, It's out of my hands. Who
Yeah.
listens and what they do with it is entirely up to them. And that's the same with a book. And I've actually met people who have spent 9, 10 years writing a book. And I said, oh, we should do a show on it. You can share it. No, 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 I can't share it. I can't share it. And well, did you write it for other people to read it? Yes. Listen, then you need to share it. But they become so attached to it
Right.
that it's like losing a limb when they let it go.
And I do think, I know for me, it was a muscle that I had to train in myself to be so vulnerable, sharing my writing.
Yeah.
And I do think it's from past lives for being persecuted, tortured, killed for speaking my truth and for
Oh, you
speaking
too?
right against the status quo, burned at the stake, drawn and quartered, dragged behind bars.
Yes.
Yes, of
Yes.
course.
Yes. Me
Yeah.
too.
So, and when this second book, Still on Fire, was coming out, I kept thinking, why am I so afraid? This book is magic, miracles, travel, and romance. But I realized I'm shattering paradigms around health and wellness, around marriage, around religion. And let's not say I'm shattering, let's say I'm introducing alternative ways of viewing them. And I realized the fear I was feeling was past lives of being tortured and killed for doing this.
Yes. Yes. Have you had past life clearance?
Clearings?
Mm.
No.
Oh, I highly recommend it. I had 152 lifetimes removed from me in 1994. And then later on, about 15 years ago, I had somebody who went deeper into the cellular. That is where she found out I had at least 50 lifetimes of torn and quartered and persecution,
Oh,
because I've
wow.
always been that spiritual person, right? No matter what kind of life I had. Um, but I'd also signed a vow of poverty at least 50 lifetimes ago. And I always wondered why money would never stick to me. It's like, um, and people perceive me to be rich, right? So it's always been an issue with money because I do believe I'm enriched and abundant. Just the bank account doesn't agree, right? And I realize, oh, that vow of bloody poverty. So I've obliterated it, done everything I can to get rid of it, but it still takes time for the new cellular structure to step forth. I think this is something people need to understand is when you do have an awakening, there is clearing that has to happen, releasing that has to happen, so that the new paradigm, the new feeling thought can come forward. But don't expect it to be like that and everything's going to be hunky-dory because you're still carrying around some garbage.
Right. And I do think also our cells need to upgrade to
Yes.
that new
Yes.
knowledge, right? And so oftentimes we'll get really sick, or be bedridden after intense, let's say, even if it's not somebody doing a past life clearing, but it's some sort of epiphany
Mhm.
or transition to a more evolved state.
That's the psyche shutting the body down so that it can go to work.
Right.
As
And
it does
upgrade
if
all
you're
the
sick.
cells.
Yes, yes, exactly. I mean, if you get sick, what do? You go to bed to rest so that your body can rejuvenate. It's the same for a whole psychic beingness. It needs to shut down so that
Right.
it can recalibrate. And we don't allow that.
Right. 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 Most of humanity just goes to the pharmacy and takes something to mask the symptoms so they can keep going to
Yes,
work or
yes.
whatever it is.
Have you
Yeah.
found that, the last 2.5 years of COVID, the way it's shut down the world, the way it's pivoted people, and the way it's made people go in, that a lot more awakening has happened, a lot more perspective has happened with people.
Yes.
Mm,
Even people who in my life who would not be aware that that was happening. I've heard so many people say to me, I've decided to take people that work 7 days a week.
yeah.
I've decided to take Sundays off. Or people who have really long hours. I've decided no matter what, I'm leaving work at 5. And
Hmm.
people, just these self-nurturing work-life balance. I've noticed those shifts and it's almost like we all got sent on a meditation retreat to do the inner work.
Yes. It was obviously horrific for the people that have lost their lives. They're finding now people who did get COVID, there's some residual problems with their health afterwards. Obviously, it shattered us economically, and we're still recovering. But again, back to that Celtic rune Haglas, it was there to disrupt us because something had to happen to unite us. So, like everyone in the world was going through the same thing,
Right.
to make us pause and reflect and redirect, but also to, when we have redirected, to find more of a balance and equilibrium and understand what really is important in life.
Yes,
Because
I
we
think,
weren't
and
asking that question before.
I do think a lot of us realize health, wellness, friends and family. I think a lot of people have shed relationships that aren't uplifting and empowering. And I'm such an optimist. I think that all the structures that needed to crumble that don't serve the whole and only serve the few, I think we're seeing all of that crumbling.
Yes. Well, I mean, when you look at the news, which I actually watch Trevor Noah and Colbert because it's the only way you can watch American news is through humor.
Right.
Because otherwise it's like, are you crazy? Are you
Humor is
crazy?
so great.
They just they present it in a way where it's serious, but at the same time let's laugh at it because what else can you do? Um, I can't watch the news.
Right.
Unfortunately, where I live, our news is actually fun. Our commentators are always laughing, making fun of each other, even when they're delivering the news. And it's light, so it's local news of what's going on. But I think we are saturated as a human race in hate, in fear, in disconnect from our heart and souls. And people just are so shattered, they don't know how to take that step of recovery, which is to ignite the heart and soul and allow that to replenish them. From going through it yourself, what would you say could be a good first step?
I think it has to come down to self-love.
Mm.
And as I traveled doing the tour for the burn zone, which is my story of being in the cult, and everyone would say, well, how could you get brainwashed? I would never get brainwashed. And I realized we're all
Really?
brainwashed. We're all brainwashed by the
Yes.
media. We're
Yes.
bombarded with messaging that says we're not okay
Exactly.
because we have to believe we're not okay to buy their products.
Yes.
And so we have
Yes.
so much self-hatred and lack of confidence and self-doubt. And you think about when you feel like you look great and you just achieve something wonderful and you go out into the world and you're so friendly and you're so excited and you have so much love and energy to share. And then you feel badly about yourself or ugly or whatever it is, not good enough. You notice you shut down. And so I
Mm.
think we have to start finding a way to love ourselves and cherish ourselves and fill ourselves up in that way. That was the number one step to healing, to stop expecting the world to see me or a
Hmm.
lover to shower me with affection or whatever it was, and to start buying myself flowers, lighting the
Mm.
candles for myself, bubble baths for myself, nice dinners for myself, dressing nicely for myself, honoring when I didn't want to be social and I wanted to be home alone, and not betraying all those little callings of my heart that, or my inner child that said, I need this, I need this, I need this. And I would override. For example, driving 4 hours and I need to go to the bathroom. And I would not pull over because I was on a time crunch. And I thought, well, if I had a child in the car and she had to go to the bathroom, I would pull over for her.
Yes,
Why won't I
exactly.
pull over for myself?
Exactly. Well, we've, I say this virtually in everything I do, that society's dictation and expectation is a delusionment. We cannot live up to this. And who has set this expectation in the first place? And what is it based in? It is based in um, disapproval. It is based in condemning. It is based in leading to hatred. It is based in a product empowering the few by fearing the masses. And if we could just shut that all off and go, I don't need to live to anybody's expectation but my own. But what is my own? And then be willing to be silent enough to switch everything else off, everybody else off, which I know is hard because I was there, and just to say, who am I from the inside out? What am I here to do? What is my beautiful instrument that I need to learn to play that I can bring to the orchestra of life? I'm not going to find that from the exterior noise, the exterior expectation. I'm only going to find it in the stillness of myself.
It's so true. It's so true. And you think, unfortunately, we're not trained
No.
in this world to do that. We're put in fight or flight from the time we're children. Go to school, go to extra school activities, do your homework, do this, do that, be here, be there. And we don't have time. Not only do we not have time to just sit and be quiet and find out who we are, but most of us are terrified to sit and be quiet because we're going to have to process all the harder emotions that we stuffed down. We're going to have all of that stuff come up. And the truth is, it's not that bad once we sit there with it. It's really not that bad.
I think in some ways, kind of again, looking at my life or in reflection, I was uneducated because I missed half of my year's schooling due to illness. And so at 16, I exempted myself because I was never going to catch up. I was never going to get there. And I didn't realize until I was 21 that I was dyslexic. So they just didn't pick it up back then, right? And so I learned better by being and doing. And so I just went out there and did life. And then through the various patterns of this job and that job and this job and that job, I found out where my forte was, where my strength was. And I could talk myself into a job where they needed credentials or this or that, and I didn't have any. I would talk myself into the job. And then I was the first woman rep for Mobil Oil in South Africa. I didn't know a thing about oil, right? But I knew about customer service. And I had the ability to see what people needed in order for them to grow. But I was always condemned and ridiculed for not being an academic from various people. But I realized not being an academic served me well because that allowed my intuition and my knowingness to come through because I was that blank slate. I didn't have the academics getting in my way.
Well, and I do think, again, the whole academia is mass consensus, right?
Yes.
That you're supposed to have this degree and that degree and
Yeah.
sit through this class and that class, where most of us don't remember it anyway. It was torture. It's torture to children sitting at that hard desk all day long. And I strongly believe each one of us is here for a reason. Each one of us is unique for a reason. Each one of us already has a divine path laid out for us. And each one of us, if we follow our heart to what feels like exciting for the next step and the next step and the next step, we end up exactly where we're meant to end up. There's no competition to get there.
Right.
We
no
have
comparison,
angels guiding
no competition,
us.
right? There's two C's. Right.
Yeah, because it's laid out specifically for each one of us when it's on our divine path. And as you said, yes, you might not be able to check the boxes off on the skill set, but you walk in there and have an interview and they love you. They don't even know why.
Right.
But it's because you're present and it's part of your divine path and the whole universe is supporting you. And they're like, well, we want to hire you and we'll train you and we want to pay you more money.
Yes. And this is, something that I say in the business shows a great deal. Before you're selling any product, you are selling yourself. And if you are not authentically you, then you're just rather like one of those annoying flashes that come up on a site. You may look glittery and you may sound blah, 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 but really I want the truth. I want you to be the product. I want you to be the essence of what you believe in. Because then if you believe in it so fervently, then I'm going to believe in you. But that big, loud salesman that it used to be, right? We're just so tired of that. Give us your authenticity. Let me connect with the truth of who you are and what you believe in. Then I will be more likely to look at what it is you believe in.
And we're all turned off by anything inauthentic. We really are. We don't even know why. It doesn't matter how flashy and well-dressed and well-educated or whatever it is. We can't wait to get that person out of our office. And I also think, if we truly want a fulfilling life, when we're going to job interviews or whatever, we actually want the match for us.
Yes.
And the match for us already exists. And we can only fit into that kind of that puzzle piece fit when we're authentic. And same with dating and
Yeah.
romance, right? We don't want to, I mean, you end up with someone who doesn't fit or who's terrible or it's toxic because we're pretending to be something we're not. And then they're signing up to be with something that's not truly us. And it's a disaster. So, yes, it comes all down to being authentic and loving ourselves, which is not easy. It wasn't for me.
No, no, it is a journey. It is a journey and an investment in self that you've got to be willing to take. But when you get to
Yes.
the other side, you'll be so grateful to yourself for taking it. And, as far as love is concerned, you're not looking for someone to complete you. You're
Right.
looking for someone who complements you.
Right.
Somebody where together, I have this beautiful picture of a man and a woman's profile, but when the face comes together, it is one singular face. And when you go into any relationship, whether it be business or whether it be a love relationship or a relationship with friends, you must be yourself. They must be themselves. And then there is the us self. What are you together? What you are together is very unique, but it should never be at the cost of you as an individual.
I wholeheartedly agree because when we do partner with somebody thinking they'll complete me or
Mm,
find a job to complete me, we're constantly terrified that partner or that job will leave.
yeah.
So there's this undercurrent of fear and anxiety. And I've learned the hard way that only when we're completely whole, we love our lives as it is, we don't need something to come make it better. Then of course everything comes, right?
Well, that's actually where I said before about unapologetically.
Right.
When you step into yourself and your own essence and people feel the essence of who you are and they want to be around you because of that essence, you're not needing to apologize of what you're not or what you can't do,
Right.
right? You are in your truth. No apology needed.
And it gives them permission to be in their truth, which is so
Yes.
interesting. Yes.
Inspiration begets invitation. When you
Right.
inspire someone, you're inviting them to seek that within themselves.
Right. And I think we resist people who pull on us for validation or affirmation, and we're really drawn to people who just are themselves and kind of put out there either like me or you don't. They're so easy to be around because they're not energetically pulling on us.
Why were you stranded at 22,000 feet in the Himalayas? And what did you learn from that?
Because I was on a modeling job. I was 20 years old. I said yes to this modeling job that took me around the world for 6 months. My mother, fortunately, she said I could go, but she said my boyfriend had to go with me. And she wanted some chaperone. It turned out that the photographer was a pathological liar who just wanted to pay pretty women to travel with him. And I wasn't training to trek the Himalayas. I was the talent. I was just supposed to take off my clothes and be in a bikini and model in all these interesting places. And so he only hired one Sherpa for him and for me to carry my stuff in his pack. And he didn't make it to the last stop before we went over the pass of the Annapurna circuit that's at 22,000 feet. And so I had to go over alone with my boyfriend, without my supplies, with no training and no guide. And we had to either keep going or die. So we kept going and we made it.
Mm. What did you learn from that?
Oh, I learned so much. I think that so many of us don't have rites of passage the way Indigenous peoples do. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's why we have so many kidults.
Mm-hmm.
um, adults who are still entitled and want to be saved and want to be catered to and are mad at the world because they're not being catered to. And when we go through a trial like that, like indigenous tribes have to go through, we realize that we can handle anything life throws at us. That we're so much stronger than we ever thought we were. And
Yes.
so then when other challenges come our way, we face them head on. We don't sit there crying, victimy, waiting to be saved.
That is, I think, probably the number one thing that has been consistent for all the shows that I've done, especially when it's of self-discovery. I never knew how courageous I was, how strong I was, what abilities I had, and what skills I learned that I could apply to life. And that discovery, I can do this. I am
Right.
strong enough. My goodness, when I didn't know how to do it, but I learned, and then I knew, and I can take that with me where I go in life. And I think that is one of the most beautiful gifts that we can learn about ourselves. We are so much more than we've been led to believe.
Yes, so true. And I do think that's, for example, why soldiers have such a hard time coming off the battlefield and integrating into civilian life, because they're pushed with their back against the wall, up against life or death continuously, and then coming back to just,
Yeah.
the news or the mundane, whatever nonsense it is that everyone complains about, that we all complain about when we're not paying attention. It has to make them so heartsick. So they want to go back to the battlefield. And I do think it makes us so alive, right? We feel how alive we are when we're right on that edge of, am I going to make it through this or not?
I have a whole platform of our global veteran stories, and
Um,
I'm I am completely anti-war, but I have such respect for the veterans that come back and own up to the fact that they have issues. They have post-traumatic stress. They cannot integrate back into life as they did before. Everything feels foreign and strange, and a lot like how we felt disconnected. And they have then created platforms and programs that help other veterans going through the same thing and become that solution and discover things about themselves from that experience that now serves even beyond the veterans. And it's beautiful stories, and they talk about that struggle. Who am I when I come back? I'm not the same person that went. What have
right.
I come back to? Right. So, it's like the aliens. We don't need to worry about them landing. They take one look and go next. So, I mean, I think that's some people were saying, especially religions, that life is about suffering. And I think they've put too much emphasis on the suffering. Life is about challenges, and we will suffer in some of those challenges. But some of those challenges are there to uplift us in a way to show us our abilities and how capable we are. That if we choose to look at it from, okay, what am I meant to learn here? How am I meant to do this, instead of, oh, why me? We
Right.
will get through those challenges without so much suffering.
And not only will we get through them, but then we can lead the way for others, because
Yes,
nobody's going to listen to somebody who's never really been through it.
right.
And I think of the baby turtles. If you've ever seen turtles hatch, and they're so little and they're so tiny, and they're going through this deep sand to get to the water, and the birds are coming, and all you want to do is pick them up and put them in the water and save them and help them. And I finally heard that no, they have to go through that deep sand to develop the muscles to then
Yes.
swim in the open ocean. If you pick them up and carry them, they'll die.
Yeah.
And that's us, I think. We have to go through these trials and tribulations so that we can help others, and so that we can have compassion for
Mm.
others.
And discover just how awesome we are. And actually, the word I love is flawsome. How beautifully flawsome we are. I mean, I heard this a few years ago, and I love the word because there isn't any one of us that doesn't have a flaw. But
Right,
that's what makes us so beautifully unique and perfect in our flawsomeness.
right. It's so true. It really is.
And there is no such thing as perfection. Things could be perfect in a moment, but there is no thing as an overall perfection.
Well, and I was raised by a perfectionistic, abusive mother who taught me that I was only worthy if I was perfect. And
Mm,
it was so deeply ingrained in me that it made so much of life not fun. And
mm,
yes, I was always the best at everything I did, but I was kind of the person who wasn't smiling that much, but she was perfect. And I just realized it's so much more fun to just try and not do it that well, and then try again and do it a little
yes.
better. And I even think about these videos and these interviews I'm doing. And in the beginning, I thought my makeup had to be a certain way, like news people. I would never wear my makeup like that. Not that
Right.
there's anything wrong with it, but that's not me.
Yes.
Or my outfits had to be a certain way. And I look back at those videos and I just go, oh my gosh,
Mm,
they're not great. But I was learning with every single one.
right. Exactly. I think that's also a gift that we've had through the pandemic is that even talk show hosts had to do things, their shows by Zoom. And now
Yes.
they're interviewing somebody in their own environment.
Right.
relaxed, kind of in a hoodie or a t-shirt, and not in the studio, being conscious of the audience and, you know, 5-minute interview, and they've got to be scintillating. And there was so much more honesty and so much more um, revealing going on of the struggle through the pandemic, or you know, the struggle of this, or I've done this and I've done that. And it is, I think it became such an illumination for people to see them in that environment more than in the other sterile environment.
Well, and especially for women, how liberating for us to feel like we're still worthy when we don't look perfect and we don't have
Right.
the makeup and the hair and the outfits. And I guess because I can see with my third eye, I just think humans are so much more beautiful without all
Mm.
that stuff on.
Yes. But it's also the ageism. You know, when I did first 5 years of only audio, and then I was doing a show with a woman who was a channeler. She channeled Athena, and she said, Sarah, let's do video. And out of my mouth came, who wants to see this old bag on thing? And then another voice came right from behind, slapping me, saying, it's not about you, it's about the content. Right. But the first reaction was, who wants to see this? I'm turning 68 in a month or so. And it's like, I've interviewed people that are 91 with their own TV show, you know, some beautiful, exuberant people in their 70s plus. And it's really, I think we're getting to understand it's not about whether they have wrinkles or whether they're aging. It's really about that essence of who they are.
It is, and you're beautiful, and your light is so beautiful. And I have to say, in Still on Fire, there's a part where I say I look in the mirror and I think I'm old and ugly. And then I say, and what world is it okay to think that about myself? And then I said, oh, here on Earth, that's
Yes.
apparently what we think about ourselves when we look in the mirror.
Yes.
But
We're,
and then
we're meant to look in the mirror and immediately criticize and not feel enough. Feel enough for whom?
well,
Whom?
because we don't look like a 20-year-old airbrushed
Right.
supermodel, which the media is telling us we have to look like to buy their products,
They
right?
don't even look like that
No.
because they're airbrushed.
Well, and then I think about there's a chapter in the book Hawaiian Waterfall where there's this probably 90-year-old man that I met that was toothless and wrinkled, and he led me on this adventure. Every time he smiled, he was so beautiful because of the light coming through and the
Yes.
kindness. And when we think about people we truly love, especially elderly people, the way they make us feel, they're so beautiful to us. It's not about the wrinkles,
No.
it's about their heart shining through them and the wisdom and the amount of light and love that they can hold with the age, really.
I live with an 89-year-old, and originally it was meant to be temporary, and then it just kind of became, it's been 4 years now. And that, for now, it's okay. I know eventually I'll move closer to my daughter, and second baby comes, and you know that will be that. But this woman, she lost her fiance 4 days before the wedding. She lost her twin sister when she was 6. Then she immediately went into 4 years of polio. But and her mother was one of these people, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. And so consequently, she never followed the path that she truly wanted to do. But she found a way to find exuberance in life. And she's 5 foot dot, if that, wrinkled as hell. She could outrun me. The other day, a dog went loose and she went chasing down the road. People were applauding instead of stopping the dog because she's chasing the dog. She talk about Christmas, my God, the excitement, she's already excited and it's only so many months away. But there's an exuberance for life and the simple things that she has there that is intoxicating, that is inviting. Yet at the same time, she doesn't think that she's worthy of anything, that she's not smart and that she hasn't contributed, and that she never lived up to her potential. I said, you've got people admiring you. They bend over backwards to do things for her. They're amazed at her spirit and her exuberance and energy over life. And I said, that in itself is a gift. I'm still trying to get her to believe that, but we have battles.
Well, and you mentioned it even earlier about how somebody can be in a state of mind where they don't want to be here anymore, and
Yeah.
you happen to help them with their groceries.
Yes.
Suddenly, just that kindness makes them want to stay.
Yes.
We have that effect on people all the time, no matter, and
Good
we
or
don't know
bad.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when we're kind and we're present and we want to help and we want to smile and we're taking the time to just acknowledge the face in front of us, I think that's the biggest difference we can make in the world, really, if we can do that consistently.
If we can do it consistently, you know, a lot of illusionment is that if you're living in your spiritual realm, you'll never be sad or unhappy, and that everything is kumbaya,
Right.
right? Which is no. As you mentioned, you are more sensitive, more empathic, so you feel all the pain, and it can be excruciating sometimes, can't it? It really can
Yeah.
like somebody tearing out your heart, you know, through your gut. Um, we still feel all of that. It's a question of the choice of the energy that we choose to be in, right? It all
Right.
comes down to choice.
Right. And being aware, right? So understanding that, yes, those of us that feel the most love and light are also going to feel the most darkness and despair, because as above, so below
Yes.
in this world of dichotomy. And then it is, though, still, going out into the world and say leaving 15 minutes earlier so you're not a jerk in traffic. Because I'll have days where I'm like, I'm just a jerk today. I'm thinking all these negative thoughts. Everybody annoys me. I can't stand humans. But then when I cross paths with someone, I hold the door open, because
Yes.
it's like,
And
I
then
just know
and
them
then you'll
all.
see a little kid do something or a dog do something or somebody go and do something nice, and it can take you from that mood to that mood just like that.
Right, right.
It's the little things.
It
It's
is.
it's the simplistic things. This is where nature is so beautiful. You know, I mean, trees do talk to us with the rustle of the leaves. We may not understand it intellectually, but it's speaking to our heart and souls. The water lapping against the shores is washing away our woes. The wind is clearing our mind. Nature is constantly speaking to us. But just to go for a walk and see a dog in such joy, or see a child chasing something, you know, people just feeling invigorated for going on that walk. If we can tap into those energies, it can take us out of where we are. And I think a big word that we need to have in our vocabulary is gratitude.
I was just going to say that because I have times sometimes where I'm really in it and I know I'm not in a good state of mind. I know I'm off balance. I know I'm not in my own energy. And no matter what I do, I cannot shift it. And yet there's still this underlying current of gratitude. And I'll even say out loud, I'll say God or goddess or source, whatever my mood is, but I'll say, God, I love my life and I'm so grateful and I'm so sorry I'm in such a bad mood today. And I'm focused on the one thing I don't have, like a romantic partner or whatever it is that
Mhm.
my mind gets stuck on. And I'll just say, I'm sorry, I'm so grateful, but I feel like crap today. And then I just feel like crap and I can't get out of it, but I know that it will pass like a storm.
And that's the point, is that sometimes that feeling that crap is that this is a day you need to switch off and nurture yourself. It's just a message. You
Right.
know, it isn't a punishment. It's just a message. This is the day for you to nurture yourself, what you need to do for you to rejuvenate you. And if we could stop looking how the world is out to get me, you know, then we will, you know, we're inclined to, to soap opera things, you know, to dramatize things. And, you know, I very often refer to the drama of trauma, because a lot
Right.
of people get caught up in trauma and dramatize it to a point because they like the attention they get rather than
Right.
releasing and healing. And, you know, everybody's allowed a bad day. We're allowed to feel sad. We're allowed to feel down. It's the whole thing is spend that emotion. Don't get emotional about it and get stuck there.
Right. And there is a huge pivotal point in my healing. There's a chapter in the burn zone called Warrior, where I woke up one morning and decided I was done being a victim and I was
Mm.
ready to be a warrior. And with that, I took my power back. I took
Yes.
full responsibility for getting into the cult, for staying in the cult. I decided I had to figure out why I was okay with toxic and abusive relationships, why I was recreating
Mm-hmm.
what happened in my childhood. I was done doing poor me. My father died and my mother was abusive. I just was like, my soul chose this. Why did it choose it? And I'm done being a victim. I'm going to be a warrior. And I made a playlist called Back in Black. And it started with AC/DC's Back in Black and had all these other hardcore songs. And yeah, I just realized we have a choice. We have a choice to either realize that life only throws us things we can handle and rise above, or to do the poor me thing. And we're allowed to do the poor me thing, but it's so disempowering.
Yes, it is. And it's okay initially,
Right,
because it's part of a grieving, or it's a part of adjusting,
right,
and but again, it's spend that emotion and then move on. The big thing is, don't get stuck in it. Don't get stuck in that rut, because it's not going to serve you. It's only going to pull you down. And when you finally have had enough, and that's it, why am I here? I mean, I came here to release myself of the toxicity of my mother and losing my father. And what did I do? I moved into a toxicity,
right,
right? So what does that say about my choices? That
right,
means I have the power to make a choice to walk away from this.
right. Yeah.
And how empowering is that, to
It's
walk away from
incredibly
it?
empowering. Oh, it's so empowering. And then it's so empowering to take a story like
Yes.
that. Like, oh, I was in the cult, and oh, I was brainwashed, and oh, I burned almost everything I owned. And then I went into a failed business relationship in New York and lost hundreds of thousands of dollars and was slandered all over the New York
Oh,
tabloids and all
lovely.
of that. And then I look back on it now, and it's a wild story. In so many of the interviews they always said, oh, Renee Linnell, cult survivor. And I said, I'm not Renee Linnell, cult survivor. I'm Renee Linnell with a wild story.
Right.
Who I am. I mean, yes,
Yes.
I survived a cult, but that's not my label.
No. And I think that is something that we definitely need to look at, is that I am not the pain or the anguish I've gone through in life.
Right,
I am survivor, thriver, Sarah, right? All it was in becoming me. Like, you became you. This was just your journey to get there. That's all. So you're sharing the experiences of your journey to get there, part as a warning, part as a reflection, part as how you place that value upon yourself to rise up above from it.
right,
And that is really what it's about and what they should be talking about. But what they want to do is talk about the drama.
right, right. Yeah.
Enough of the violin, right? Let's have some rock and roll.
Yeah, exactly. And rock and roll's messy.
Yeah, it is. But life is messy, but it's also beautifully tranquil. Um, there are those moments where you just feel yourself completely ascend up into that light and the universe of peace, of everything and nothingness all at one. You have those moments, but we're here on life to have an experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, not the other way around. But we're here for a reason: to learn, to share, and to ignite other souls.
I agree. Definitely. And to love,
And
right?
to love. Well, love is the answer to everything.
I think
Love
so.
is the vibration of ascension. You can, once you really truly step into self-love, love of life, love of what you do, love of what's around you, and that doesn't mean you don't dislike things that are going on and you disapprove. It's not like an all or nothing. You just choose to live in that love vibration, which lifts your entire frequency up to a much higher vibration.
It's interesting. I had a quote, and this is in the burn zone. I opened the burn zone with this quote also, but it's Saint Catherine of Siena, and it says, "Be who God made you to be, and you will set the world on fire."
Mm-hmm.
And I would always look at that quote in my office when I was in New York and so broken, and I would say, "Well, I would love to be who God made me to be, and I would love to set the world on fire, but I don't know what that is." And then one day I walked in my office and I saw that quote, and the word love popped into my mind.
Yeah.
And I just realized that I was meant to be love, and that we're all meant to be love. And we're meant to be living, breathing, walking manifestations of love. And so we can be loved when we're in a bad mood, or when we're sad, or when we're
Yes.
lost or confused or angry or hurt. We can still be loved. And we feel so good when we're loving.
Mm-hmm. But first and foremost, you can't be love until you find self-love.
Right.
And that self-love comes from the experiences of pain or anguish or struggle, into discovering that beautiful essence of yourself, which makes you fall in love with you, which isn't ego, right?
Right.
It isn't the exterior of you or how many followers you have or how rich you are or what car you drive. That's a human condition. It is the essence of your light within you that you feel burning within you, like a girl on fire, when you feel it burning within you and wanting to let those beautiful, radiant flames open up other people around you.
Yes, I agree. And I do think often, again, going back to the trauma and the sledgehammers that come in life, usually when they come and we think, I just can't go on trying to be who the world needs me to be in this job, in this marriage, in whatever it is, and it's all crumbling. And when we finally surrender into, I cannot do this one more second, then we let go. We realize that what's most important to us is being authentic and self-loving and self-nurturing. And it doesn't matter if we have a huge bank account. What matters is if we have joy in our heart. I
Yes.
live in Aspen, Colorado, which is one of the wealthiest communities in the world. And our suicide rate is 17% higher than
Wow.
anywhere else.
Yeah. Well, again, people are living up to an illusion. They're
Right,
living up to an expectation. They're living up
right,
to the postal code, right? So we why do we see so many rich kids from rich parents get into so much trouble,
right,
right? Because there is that disconnect from reality. The just like the turtle having and a butterfly, like the caterpillar becoming the butterfly, it has to go through that process to become in
right,
its strength, in its ability, in what it represents. But if you're constantly cushioning people and not allowing them to experience their own struggles or their own challenges, then they're going to be people that always feel entitled, that are always looking for opulence and always feeling empty because we
right.
haven't taught them how to fulfill themselves from the inside out.
Right. And I think also always secretly feeling very afraid that
Mm,
the things that are constantly filling them will go away because they're not filling themselves from the inside. And so then they have that underlying current of intense anxiety and fear and often turn to addiction to numb
yeah.
it. And it's interesting how so many that have so much are so deeply soul sick.
Yes. Again, back to life, it's meant to have its struggles and challenges. It doesn't mean that it has to bury you. It's all a question of our attitude of gratitude, what we go through. I've been down that rabbit hole of despair where please a bus come and hit me, quite a number of times in my life. No more because I live above that energy now. Um, and it's accepting the gift we are, the instrument we are, learning how to play it, looking for that orchestra to join, and realizing we are here to do something, to contribute something, to learn, to teach, to share, to uplift. And the more we do that, the more we gather the people around us that are on that same plane, the more we truly understand that just the sheer living, just being alive and living in life and loving life is really what it's about. That's really where the gift is.
I agree. And I have also been in that place of
It's nice, isn't it?
ready to leave.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
And
the being ready to leave, yes, no, but doesn't it show you where you are now? The how
yes.
exuberant you feel about your life now?
Well, and because now I go when those really dark states of mind hit, I know they'll pass. And I
Mm,
also go, I don't know 100% why I'm here. I don't think any one of us is really supposed to, but I know I'm here and I know that I make a difference. And I just had my launch party on last week and about 100 people showed up and I didn't get to interact with all of them, but I looked out and I would see these faces. And even if it was just for a second, each face mattered to me.
yes.
Each face brought joy to me and filled my heart up. And that party would not have been the same without every single one of those faces. And it's so easy for us to go, oh, I'm walking in a crowded room. No one's going to notice me. My presence doesn't make a difference. And I realized so strongly Tuesday night that yes, our presence, it always makes a difference. It always, the way, you think of a cat walking into a room and it doesn't have
Mm,
to say anything or do anything, but it changes the whole vibration of the room just by being there. And that's how we are too. We have to realize that about ourselves.
And that, goes to how we even interact on social media.
Right.
A few years ago, my mum was dying, and I asked people to put out a prayer for her to help her cross over. She was 95 in a great deal of pain and just kind of couldn't let go. And within 24 hours of that prayer, over 110 people sent prayers. My mum crossed over peacefully. A
Oh,
few weeks ago, my sister was undergoing a life-threatening disease operation. She has sticky blood, so the whole thing of her not being on warfarin, that means it just they put a 60-40 against her, right? And she ended up, I had so many people, again, I would say close to 200 from my social medias of people I'm praying for her recovery, her continued recovery. And it doesn't matter which way they're praying or who they're praying to. It is that beautiful divine energy that they sent out, that channeling it to her, that I believe helped her through it. And this is the thing, is don't limit yourself to just the people physically around you. Our
right.
energy can be sent, and that's why there's remote healing. People can heal anywhere, anyone in the world, as long as they tap into that frequency.
I agree. And I love that about us. That, and going back to what you said, we're so much more powerful than we realize, especially with the power of love and thoughts and prayer. And after my launch party on Tuesday, I was filled with so much gratitude that the next day I kept bursting into tears of gratitude and dropping to my knees. And when I would say thank you, I would imagine my thank you spreading out across all of eternity, just touching everybody with this thank you, thank you,
Yes.
thank you, thank you.
And that would have resonated out, and people wouldn't have known why they're getting it, right?
Right.
But it kind of reaches the people that need to hear it, those that are kind of tuned in, and that there's just, how sometimes you get, "Oh, I'm just feeling good. I don't know
Yeah.
why, but, and you just know that maybe there was that silent good wishes sent to you, and it does vibration, because everything is numbers, everything is a mathematical equation, and everything is energy. We are
Right.
all particles made from the universe. And in that energy, those good vibes and the negative vibes, you can send out bad ones too. Karma comes back. Don't do that. But we're sending out the good vibes. It will reach people and help heighten their own energy to whatever they're facing at the time.
I'm laughing because I just saw a meme recently that said karma's like Santa Claus, only bitchier.
I actually did a show many years ago with a couple that started karma cards. And if they saw somebody doing a good act, they would give them a karma card, thank you for your good act. But if they saw someone doing a bad act, they would hand them a karma card. That wasn't very nice. What are you going to do about it? And they said they would watch the people with a good thing. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's nice to be acknowledged, right? And in encouraging, when they saw the people with the bad card, it was like, is anybody looking? And they would immediately feel guilty because it brought the guilt out in them for the action that they did. And I thought that was a pretty neat thing to do. So yeah,
Well, and it shows that we really do feel our best when we're loving and
yeah.
kind, right? And generous and all of that. And then we're human. And so we are not always going to be that way. And we just hope someone with a karma card isn't standing there watching us.
Exactly. But I think where we're at right now, we're at that crossroads in life of choice. More and more people like yourself have stepped up in your higher vibration to resonate out, to ignite and invite other people to this frequency. And it is through many celebrities speaking out and honestly opening up to it, but it also is through this beautiful art of podcasting, where people can be honest. They haven't got a director saying, no, can't say that, no, got to bleep that out, where you can be yourself. And through this, people have learned so much about themselves through listening about other people's journeys. And I would say we're at the pendulum swing right now, where the positivity is beginning to rise more than the negativity, but that makes the negativity be desperate and want to hold on to that, because they know that the day is coming where that power will not be there anymore.
I completely agree. It's like the death throes of those who, let's just say, aren't acting through a lens of love.
No, No, or the love of hate, which is not love, folks.
Right.
It's not the kind of love we're talking about.
And the brighter it gets, right, the more intense the shadows are.
Yes.
It's just saying. But I completely agree with you. I think there's so much light energy coming in. I think people are evolving and waking up. I think that we are seeing a huge shift for the evolution of humanity. I really do. And even though the media would like us to think that it's getting darker and darker and darker, I don't think it is.
No. And, you know, it's when you look at it, you know, I always say that places like Fox News, they take a pimple and make it into a volcanic eruption
Right,
because that's what their job is to do. They're there to
right,
sensationalize everything, to build up hysteria
right.
and have people react. But every single thing they do is from the dark side, the negative side. There is no positivity there whatsoever. And it's feeding the people that are living in that negativity and choose not to do the work to get into the light. But for those that are sick and tired of that darkness, they're seeking the light elsewhere. And more power to them and more energy to them.
And I do think more and more people are getting sick of that news
Yes.
and turning it off.
Yes.
I'm hearing that too. I don't believe it anymore. I don't trust it anymore, whatever. To hear people that I know are addicted to news because there's energy there, right? For people who don't have very exciting lives or don't love their lives, at least it's something to be a part of. Turn on the news, what's happening? It's exciting. You know, we're all going to die. But it's exciting at least. Better than sitting at home, doing nothing. And so it gets the lifeblood pumping, which is a lot better than no lifeblood at all. And
Yeah.
but I do think people are finally fried by it and starting to
Yes.
turn it off, which is lovely.
When I used to do my coaching, I would kind of, I'm British folks, so I still go by rulers, inches, and feet, not metric, but I would draw an analogy of a ruler, and your 6 inches to 12 inches were people that were on different levels of positivity, on different higher vibrations. And there were the people that in the 5 that were in that discovery and embracement of that energy. But your 1 to 3s were the piranhas, and they lived in the misery. And what they would do is suck the life out of the 4 and 5s that were gaining energy and wanting to move over. And this is why it's essential that when you are on that choice to move over more into the loving light, to be very careful of the people around you, because those piranhas can suck the life right out of you. And then you wonder why I was doing so much progress. Why have I gone right back again? And you think you've done something wrong. And really, it's just the people around you that are sucking the life out of you. So it is important to have the right people around you or nobody around you at
Right.
that time of moving from that 4-5 into the 6.
That's a beautiful analogy. And I do think for those of us making those shifts, especially quite large shifts, we
Mm,
do end up going through a phase of aloneness
mm,
when we leave behind all the people that are negative and we haven't yet found the tribe of the people
mm,
who are positive. And I do think it's almost like a cocoon period where if we trust that we'll call into our lives the much more positive, and that we're alone just for a short period of time, that it's more comforting, let's just say, because I struggled with loyalty. As I
yeah.
made those shifts, I thought, well, I'm not being loyal by no longer wanting to be around these old friends. And then I thought, but I don't like the way I feel when I'm around them. I don't
Mm-hmm.
like what we talk about. They're so negative. They're complaining and gossiping all the time. It feels terrible. I get drained. But it really was not easy for me to leave them with love
Mm,
and then be alone and then eventually call in such a supportive community of people who understand our thoughts create our reality and understand about our vibration and don't want to talk negatively about other people. And so I guess I'm saying that for people who are in the 4 and 5 place that you
yeah.
mentioned, that they're not going to be alone forever. They will call in a more supportive tribe.
Part of the being alone is so that you can switch off the static and start hearing the divine truth. But it's
Right.
also to get used to enjoying your alone time, because you will always want that alone time, no matter when you go up to the 12. That is your replenishing time. That is the time when the universe speaks to you in that beautiful silence of alone time. And don't look at it as a punishment or a neglect. Look at it as a sanctuary, your sanctuary. where you can make your own discovery and nurture yourself and be at one with yourself.
And connect to source, right? I
Mm.
noticed that my cure for loneliness is solitude.
Yes,
So
yes.
if I start to feel really lonely, I think, okay, I somehow lost my open connection, let's just say to source. My vibration's off, it's dropped. Um, as counterintuitive as it is, I need a day or two completely in solitude in my home. And then I bounce right back and everything's great and I don't feel lonely.
Do you find that where you live, I lived on the mainland in Vancouver, BC, Canada, for 37 years, and it didn't matter where I went, I just kept feeling the static, and I just, and I've always loved the island, and I eventually moved to the island, which is 4.5 years now. I love being on the island. The energy, the vibe, the tranquility here is absolutely beautiful. And I think sometimes we do need to move away from something that is too loud for us. I know people will say, well, no, you can find yourself wherever you are. But I do believe that environment is very, very important sometimes in connecting and settling your own vibration.
Oh, definitely. I moved from New York City to a town of 2,000 people in Colorado up in the mountains. And I never thought I would stay this long, but now I can't imagine living anywhere
Uh-huh.
else.
Yeah.
And it's
Less
nature.
is
I have,
more, isn't it?
right, it really
Yes.
is.
Yes.
And I need the quiet, and I have deer that come look in my
Yeah.
window. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
My kids have an Airbnb, a cottage on the island, and it's overlooking the lake. And I was there for a couple of days on my own after my son's dog had a cancer operation. So I was there looking after her, and I was doing a show, and the elk came right up to the window, and they wander around the garden, and just the whole area, just the tranquility of it, just the peace and quiet of it was just so it's there's so much to be gained in that equilibrium around you.
Yes, it's so soul soothing. And
Yeah.
it's for whatever reason, you just reminded me of when I first moved to New York and I had a handyman come set up my TV. And he walked into my bedroom where I meditated every morning. And in his thick New York accent, he goes, "Whoa, it feels like a temple in there. Do you meditate or something?" And I said, "Yeah, how did you know? Do you meditate too?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's New York. You gotta."
Yes. Otherwise, it
I
can
love
eat
how
you up.
he found his way to find Zen in the middle of all that chaos. And we
Yeah,
ended up talking about it. He said he woke up every morning early and he meditated for half an hour before he put on his jumpsuit and went to be the maintenance guy at this building.
wonderful. There is a guy, Mikhail Pascal, who's a monk, and he would take people into Times Square to meditate amongst the chaos. And he said, be the
Wow.
mountain amongst the chaos. Anybody can meditate in silence, but how do you meditate when the hurricane is all around you?
Right.
That's because we're always going to find ourselves in chaos. How do we be still in that chaos and not get caught up in that hurricane?
And that's the $1 million question. And it
It
takes
would it
practice.
it takes, I think, discipline and training, but we can get there, right? We can
Oh
get
yeah.
where we can.
I that's been my journey and I feel
Mm,
like I'm getting better and better and
yeah,
better at it.
yeah. And it's just not to let those static things or anything else that's happening in the universe. I don't know what it is for you that when you get those outside things bombarding, music is the thing for me. I interviewed a lot of beautiful musicians, and very often I listen to their music or I just go to YouTube. And it's not the words or the lyrics I'm listening to, it's literally the frequency of the music that resets me and calms me. What does it for you?
For me, it's nature. It's
Mm,
always nature. Um, and if I can't be in nature, it's kind of a warm cup of tea or a warm cup of coffee and just under a blanket, kind of turning off the senses in a
mm,
way to not
yeah.
be overstimulated. Yeah. And reading sometimes helps.
Yes, yes. And we can get lost in the reading and, kind of removing yourself from yourself, right?
Yes.
Yeah, sometimes that's good. So what is next for you? You have this beautiful new book that has just come out, Girl on Fire, and you've got, or still on fire. Obviously, you have your other book as well. But what is next for you other than, promoting the book? What is next for Renee? And also, how do people
Um,
get hold of the book?
I'm promoting the book for the next 2 months, and then I'm going to Argentina for the month of November and writing the third book, which is
Ah,
called Twin Flames.
oh, that would be a good one. You've got to come back and share that one for sure. Definitely. So, I mean, did you ever think that you would be the writer?
Never. I never
Mm,
would have imagined. As I was going through that whole shattering and everything, my whole life destroyed, I never would have imagined moving to the mountains. I'm a
mm,
surfer girl. I grew up on a boat. I
mm.
never would have imagined being a writer. I was a professional dancer. I was used to being on stage and using my body to express myself. And the universe knew exactly what she was doing. And I have to say, I love this life so much more than I could ever have imagined. She knew what she was doing when she put me in a town of 2,000 people up in the mountains,
Yeah,
because now I'm oversensitive and it's really hard for me to be in some place
yeah.
with a lot of people. And she knew what she was doing when she gave me a career of writing. I
Mm.
mean, she just, yeah, she has our back.
Yeah, exactly. When we get out of our way, we
Right,
we learn in what way we need to go, right?
right.
Yeah, wonderful. How do people get hold of you? How do they get the books?
Through my website, reneelinnell.com. It's ReneeLinnell, and the books can be ordered through any bookstore that you love or online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, IndieBound.
Wonderful. And I always say that books make absolutely the best gifts. And if you know somebody that's kind of embarking on their journey, just for fun, give them a book. Hey, this book inspired me. Have a read. Whether they do or not, or when they read it, we have no control. But when they do, it's right at the time they're ready to receive it. But books are great gifts, not just at birthdays and Christmas. Pass on a book. And I love book clubs where people discuss it as well. I'm always promoting podcast clubs as well, where people can listen to a podcast and then share what each of them got out of it, because it's always different. And that's what kind of makes it a buffet. So, it's give the book as a gift to someone that it would benefit, and then just step back, let them enjoy it, and then they'll be wanting to discuss it with you afterwards.
I love that. And I do love how books, sometimes we receive them as gifts and we don't look at them and we put them on the shelf. And then months later, we walk by and grab it, and it's exactly what we needed to read at the just right time.
Exactly. I love books where I can just open up a page and that page or that paragraph or that chapter is exactly what I needed in that moment. I love that. So yes. Um, Thank you for taking your journey. Thank you for being willing to go through the process, to be in your own self-discovery, and then now to share it with all its darkness and light, because it really helps other people, see the darkness in their life, because not everybody sees it as darkness. They just think it's life. But when they can see, but there is light over here that can shed on the darkness and release it, and you can live here in this beautiful peace and love, as opposed into the constant conflict and pain there. Don't you want to go through the process to get there? Because we can't help people until they are willing of free will to want to take that process, but we can give them a nudge, nudge, wink, wink before the cosmic gives them a 2x4.
I completely agree.
We want to avoid the 2x4s, folks, but even if you have a 2x4, don't let it pull you down. It's meant to disrupt you. It's meant to shatter you so that you can rebuild from those broken pieces. As they do in China or Japan, when a bowl breaks, they put it back together with gold, because it makes
Oh.
it more unique and more valuable. Right? So don't ever think, well, I'm broken and nobody will love me. Balderdash, right? Just put yourself back together with the right nectar. And because of that flawsomeness, because of those fractures that you've had, it makes you more whole and more abundant at who you are today. And that's what people will fall in love with.
And was such an interesting story because I was going around going, I'm so broken, I'm so broken, I'm just healing, I'm so broken. And then one day I went, I'm not broken, I'm Renee with a crazy story. It's
Exactly.
been through so much life.
It's just the experiences that you went through, and those experiences
Right,
have made you who you are today. You are not what happened to you. When people
right,
say, it happened to me. No, it happened for you.
right.
And it was for you to discover who you are and how capable you were to rise up out of that situation.
I believe that wholeheartedly.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. Come back with the next book. Be delighted to have you. And good luck with the book here right now. I think people are just going to fall in love with you and the book. And as I said, folks, don't forget to gift, 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 because you never know if you're actually giving somebody a gift of their own life, right? You don't know.
Right.
Give it with good, loving intentions. And when it's picked up, it will be received that way, even if they don't know they're receiving it that way, right? So thank you so much, Renee, for sharing here today. And once again, the site is reneelinnell.com.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It was lovely to meet you, and I look forward to reading your book.
Ah, yes, the more daunting. Yes.
I can't wait.
I think I need to make it more interesting.
I'm sure it's perfect, just the way
Yeah,
it is.
well, it is what it is.
The
And
offering
that's,
from your
yeah,
heart. It's
yeah,
the offering from your heart.
it is what it is, and it will be what it will be. And that's all it can be. Really? Right,
Yes.
that's all it can be. So, but certainly I've taken a few tips out of your leaf today, that's for sure.
Wonderful.
Back to
I
do some
love that.
editing.
I
Thank
love
you so
that.
much. And to everyone else out there, please don't be afraid to take your journey, no matter whether it's the hammer, the sledgehammer, the 2x4, or just a trip. Understand everything is a learning curve just to find out how beautifully flawsome you are and what you're here to do. And when you do, life is truly beautiful. Until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. Find all of our shows on selfdiscoverymedia.com under podcasts or selfdiscoverymedia/shows. And for all our current shows, go to What's New. We are supported by you, the audience. You'll see a nice big shiny blue button for one-time donations or follow us on Patreon and you will be able to support us there. We enjoy bringing you such wisdom. And the next show will be up in just a moment.